Hey guys, welcome to the Laying Foundations podcast. This is your co-host Davis Hambrick. Joining alongside me today is Walker Lott. What's up, Walker?
What's up, Davis? How's your weekend going, man?
Good, man. It's Memorial Day weekend. How are you?
Man, I'm doing great down here at the lake, getting to hang out with some friends and family and enjoy the time a little bit. So it's been good.
Yeah, guys, it's Memorial Day weekend. It's a good time to just remember, the people that put their lives on the line for us. And
Yep.
I know it could just be easily put as just it's another long weekend, but it's kind of remembrance of them. So, but as we go into our podcast, Walker, we got to talk to a really great, young, intelligent guy. Why don't you speak more on that?
Yeah, we got to talk to a guy named Nihar. So he works over for a company out in California, all the way on the West Coast. But he's awesome. He's a really cool dude. So he's from India. You'll hear more about this later on in the show or towards the beginning, actually. But he's from India. Dude knows like 4 languages. He got a degree in engineering over there. Ended up coming here, get a master's. Now he's writing a research paper while he's working for a general contractor. I mean, it's crazy what this guy does. So if you don't have any, if you want to know about time management, talk to Nihar. He will tell you how to do it.
That's right. That's right. We could both learn from him a little bit, couldn't we?
That is for sure, man. What was your favorite part of this? I think it was a fantastic.
Yeah, it was a great show. I love just his authenticity about it. You would think that a guy that does research, I don't really know. You would think he'd be more about the numbers, but he really is about the people.
Yep.
And what exactly his research was about, which was not just mental health, but total worker health, talking about all the different factors. And when he breaks it down, it shows you, wow, there's a lot of stress that goes into a person that's performing the work, not the construction manager. So it was very eye-opening to see some of those polls and what he had to say about it. But I just really loved getting to hear this perspective and how can we assist him and carry this conversation to keep the ball rolling.
No, that's really good. You can just tell he just cares about people. Such a nice dude. I feel like this type of guy you could go to for anything. He'd help you out any way he can. Mm-hmm. But with that, enough of us talking. Without further ado, Nihar Trivedi. Nihar, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. We really appreciate you being on here. To begin with, man, let's just start with who you are. What do you do? Where are you from? And how did you get into it?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm Nihar Trivedi, and I work with Swinerton. Swinerton is a general contractor based out of California. We have about 18 offices in the U.S., heavily focused on West Coast, but we recently opened an office in New York and slowly expanding in Southeast as well. My designation is an assistant project manager, and I will finish 4 years at Swinerton in June of this year. So excited for my 4th year anniversary coming up.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I am initially from India. I grew up over there, did my undergrad over there, got my bachelor's in civil engineering.
Awesome.
And then worked there for about like 3 years total, and then decided I wanted to move into the management side of our field. So back there, I was a field engineer, doing a lot of like the superintendent and project engineer responsibilities. So out there in the field doing QC, laying work out for the next day, then coming back doing RFIs, documentation, and that kind of work. And decided that I want to learn, specialize in something, and my interests aligned towards construction management. So I looked universities up and I read about it, did some research, and found out like the US has one of the best schools for construction management. And so enrolled at University of Washington, Seattle for a master's in construction management program. Nice. Did that for a year and a half, and then I've been working with Swinerton since then. I came here in 2016, September.
Cool, man. Nihar, that's awesome. I'm curious about, you did your civil engineering over in India. At the time, did you know, or did you speak English? And then when you transitioned to college, you had to learn English in America, or was that something you already knew?
So No, all my education in India has been in English.
Okay.
The
Okay.
issue is that we learn everything in English. We are just not used to communicating or speaking to each other in English. So
Okay.
it's like India is a in a country with a lot of diverse backgrounds, cultures, and languages. So every state has its own language. So
Oh
like
wow.
I know four languages. So
Dang.
English, Gujarati, Hindi, and Marathi. So
Wow.
Marathi is like the state language where I grew up. Hindi is like the most spoken language in the country, so I learned that.
Mm.
English, we have to learn English because that's all our education, and English is the most spoken. So I think India has the most English speaking population of any country, which is not in itself an English speaking country. So
Right.
yeah.
That's cool.
How
And
many states? How many states are in India?
well, that keeps changing. I don't know. I don't remember the exact count, but somewhere about 28, I want to say.
Okay.
But then we have states and union territories, and so every state, most of the states have their own language. And then Gujarati is my mother tongue, so I learned that. And then I also learned Sanskrit as part of my education. So I
Really, man.
4 complete and half for Sanskrit because I am not too good at it.
Crazy.
I'm
Yeah.
impressed already. Walker and I
We
keep
know
talking
one.
about wanting to do Spanish, and we can't even. You know what I mean? We can't even stick to that. Holy cow, dude.
Well, it's on my list actually, learning Spanish because a lot of the construction workers
Yeah.
are Hispanic, and
Mhm.
it's just fun talking to them. You spend so much time out there in the field,
That's right.
and sometimes language is a barrier. A lot of
Mhm.
the people are good at what they do. The only issue comes when they're not able to communicate that in the right way. And so I feel like if I knew Spanish, somewhere I can make a personal connection with those folks and, talk to them better. But going back to your original question, how did I get in? And so I always wanted to, well, I had two things in mind since I was a kid. One was I wanted to be a commercial pilot, or B, option B was to become a construction manager.
You're awesome. I love it, dude.
Crazy.
Wow. I wanted to be a commercial pilot, and then I was just fascinated by Bob the Builder growing up. So this is cool.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So, well, my story was we lived in a condo back home, and behind us was, I want to say, like a 20-acre open land in the middle of the city. It was reserved for some park, and then a private developer bought it, and they started constructing this huge I want to say 10 floors of parking, and then on top of them are three towers and 57 floors each, so huge, massive construction towers. So I saw all that work, and it took them like 7 8 years because they started, they stopped, they started, they stopped. And so my mom used to say when I was a kid I wouldn't eat till they put me on a chair so I could look outside the window, and then they fed me. So that's how I grew up, is
That's
looking at
awesome.
people building things. But then also I always like, I'm fascinated by like high rises, planes. So both the things aim high, like they say.
There you
And
go.
so, in eighth grade, I had to make a choice because the way it works schooling in India is after the 10th grade, you have to decide what you want to do.
Mm.
It's like you want to do like science, or
It's a
you
big
want to go into
decision in
engineering.
10th grade.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. But like you start planning in the eighth grade because then you can choose which courses will help you go into the field you wanted to do. And so sat down with the counselor, and I said I want to be a pilot. So I went and tested, and my vision was good, I could be a pilot. But when we heard the cost of getting trained, and at that time there was no reputed school in India, so I had to go, like, I remember the cheapest option was Australia, but that was still very expensive for us. And so I had to drop that plan, and then I made my mind, okay, I'm going to be a construction manager. And so I enrolled for this it's a thing called Diploma in civil engineering. So right after your 10th grade, you have 4 years of schooling where you just learn, well, the first year is generic, you learn physics, chemistry, bio, and all that. But from second to the fourth year, you're all deep into civil engineering, and you only do it when you know that's what you want, because you cannot switch once you're in the program. So yeah. That's what I did. I
Wow.
did that, and then I realized that diploma isn't deep enough. So I learned everything, but it wasn't like up to the standard of an undergrad. So I then went ahead and enrolled myself for a Bachelor of Civil Engineering degree and did that. And then I worked, and then I said, okay, time to be a construction manager, and came to the US.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, from your experience of being in India and in the U.S., is there a big difference in the way they do construction in the two
Oh
different
yeah.
locations? Okay, what's the most
Yeah.
major difference in your opinion?
Well, so the approach towards safety of the workers, like in the, I don't know if I should even say this, but when I was during my first internship, I was checking a deck. So we had rebar and everything tied, and I was just walking with the structural engineer, and I was walking in flip-flops. We didn't even have to wear
Wow.
Wow.
shoes or anything. I have seen workers walking barefoot on a deck, and so like no hard hats, no vest. It's pretty casual. But then I mean, it's not like that everywhere, but a lot of the construction is like that. And lately things have been changing. We have like local OSHA offices set up, so there's education. There's a lot of changes in like bigger projects, like hard hat, high vis vest and things like that. So it's been a drastic change, but still it's still improving. So one, that was one thing, and the second thing was no paperwork. You say something, people trust
Really?
it, it
I
just goes.
love it.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. You don't have that nowadays in the
No,
U.S.
no, well, not here for sure. Like, I
at
mean,
all.
people keep changing. Like the client would come to the job site, they'll walk. If they don't like something, they'll say, switch it, switch this style or whatever. We'll pay you whatever it is, and we don't need to document it. We just do the work and they pay us.
Wow. Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, very different, very different. That took me a while to get that, concept that people not necessarily lying, but people will not stick to their words, and
Right.
it's pretty shocking.
Right. Yeah. Not to get off on a tangent about an iPhone and trust and stuff,
Yeah.
but since the iPhone has progressed, we've been able to have so much, quicker communication to where you're able to last minute go, I want this or this and that. And I mean, that doesn't play into somebody's trust. Obviously, that plays into you as a human, but that's crazy. I mean, it's fascinating. It's awesome. Your story is really cool. I'm amazed already just listening
Oh,
to you the
me and you
past few
both.
minutes. But if we can transition here, I loved hearing about your story. I loved hearing about you being at APM and working in Cali and in your office and all that stuff. But you know, Nihar, to be honest, the thing that caught my eye is that the research paper you've written while you were at University of Washington, I believe, correct?
Yes.
And so I want to talk more into that. I first want to ask you. Well, once I get there, I want to ask you, how do you define mental health? Because to some people, I feel like in the construction industry, especially on the field side, they think mental health is just like, I'm going crazy. I'm going to be in a psych ward. Like I'm not going to be able to hand it. But someone that I've done a lot of research on and seen a lot of family members and a lot of just friends and just anybody, any person you go through. I mean, a lot of people just deal with anxiety. A lot. I mean, I'll be the first one to say it. OCD. What I have, it's a form of it, and
Uh-huh.
how I cope with it and what I do, or how I take it out on other people. It's completely up to me. But let's talk about your research paper and maybe lay down the background. But before that, tell me, how do you define mental health? I know that's just a very broad term and ambiguous, but do the best you can there.
Yeah. Yeah. And for just one thing, so Swinerton is based out of California, but I work in their Seattle office. So I'm in Washington State, Seattle. And I also went to school over here. But yeah, mental health. So, it's kind of hard to define. And one of the reasons why people, I don't want to say like don't take it seriously, but like it's it's not something you can see, so it's hard for people to interpret like what it is. You see an injury, you realize, okay, it's serious, or okay, yeah, you're gonna be fine, or this is minor, or you actually see and that visuals make an impact on you. It's hard with mental health, is like, how do you, well, some forms of mental health issues you can see out on people, if they have some extreme form of some sort of disorder or something, but like basic is, just being excessively stressed also accounts for like you're not in the best of your mental health, and I like to call well-being, um not to just put it in health terms, because like it's like fitness, your mental fitness. And a lot of the people don't realize that when they are too stressed, it directly or indirectly is affecting them, but it's just they can't see it, but they are feeling it. But this masculinity, like this strong nature of construction, makes them like, nah, I can't be like that. I have to be out there, I have to do this work, I have to be strong. This is not something that happens to me. I'm a construction worker. So yeah, I can't exactly define. I mean, there's textbook definitions, but it's just not being in the right state of mental well-being, being distracted, being not able to like focus or give time to family, having like always worrying about things, or it can be like as minor as that, like okay, constantly thinking, or OCD. uh it's not severe, so there's different levels, but
Right,
like
right.
our goal with this paper is not just to like look at like one thing, or to stop people from going crazy or doing suicide. It's also looking at just mental well-being in general, because over time it can escalate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, if you are young and you're working, constantly working overtime, it's going to impact you, if not now, maybe down the road. So
Right.
how do we identify it? Because something that people don't like to a talk about, b you can't physically see that, right?
Mhm.
And still, like when you have a discussion, make it comfortable. Identify the points by, okay, how do you measure stress, right? It's just so hard. Like you probably can get devices, but you can't test everybody's stress levels every day,
Right.
right?
It's off the
So
person.
did I do a good job?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think you did. I think mental health is such an ambiguous term, but one of the ways I really define it is, like you said, stress. How do we cope with stress? Is it affecting my work capability? Is it affecting my home life? Is it affecting me and my thoughts? And honestly, I mean, I've had that. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, I've been openly about on this podcast about years before I got in college. I was just OCD to the point where I just blew off my friends. And Walker had that great quote last week of saying, to have a friend, you have to be a friend. I thought that was awesome. But there's a person I follow. His name's John Deloney. He's a Dr. John Deloney. He talks about anxiety, and he wrote a book on mental health. And one of the ways he talks about anxiety is just anxiety is just an alarm telling you, hey, something's wrong, something's triggered, what's going on.
Yeah.
And he talks, not to get on a whole rant about this. We have a lot to talk about, but he just talks about how there's ways to go about coping with stress. Getting away from our devices more than we should, exercising, re-engaging with people like we are right now. But I ask you that to kind of set up the research paper, to set up this holistic approach. What I would say of this research you had, it's not just one thing, like you said. There's multiple things, but tell us, maybe more about what you did, where this idea came from, and in the process of going through this research paper.
Yeah. And so one thing I would like to add to my previous topic is a major like silent killer, if you want to say, is depression.
Yeah.
People ignore it, and it's hard because I've done some research about it. I'm still reading, doing more literature review, but uh, there's been reports where a person doesn't even realize if they're in depression. It can go undetected for months, even before they realize they're in depression. So that some things like that, how do you how do you even spread the education, not as an employer, not necessarily like tell that person that you are having issues, but how do you make them aware to identify issues with themselves, like without anybody else telling them. So that's one of the goals. But yeah, coming to the paper, so the way it is, so at University of Washington, when you're doing a master's in construction management, you get to pick either of two options. One is you can do a thesis, and the other option is you can do a research paper. So I opted for research paper because that way it allowed me to take more classes, and I didn't actually want to do a PhD. Well, at that point, I didn't, wanted to do a PhD. So I chose the research paper option, and then I was exploring topics with my advisor and professor, Professor Lee, and and we were going through topics, and she is big into safety research. She has done a lot of research. She has published a lot of papers. She takes the safety classes at UW, and she had a list of like, I want to say 7 or 10 things that she one day wanted to do research on, and she thought that these are important things, but just she didn't have the resources or time, to focus on it. And then and she gave me a list and said, look at it and see what is interesting to you. And so I went and researched on all the topics, and the total worker health caught my eye, and I read about it. So NIOSH has a website on it. They have been talking about it since like a long time. They officially named it in 2011 as like total worker health as a thing. And you know I just couldn't find enough data on it. And I read, the more I read about it, I realized the importance of this topic. And I was just kind of shocked, saying nobody ever thought to look into this. I mean, there's research for sure, but there's no research that is focusing on this, like you said, holistically, like looking at different parameters that are not related directly to your mental health, but how can we extract data from those different factors and see how we can help people, how we can look at their mental well-being. And so that was the initial concept. So process of the research is, once you pick a topic, you need to write an abstract, get it approved, and once it's approved, you start your research. So first step, doing literature review, right, reading different papers, different books, texts, and things like that. And once you do that, you develop an idea, because you only have a certain amount of time. Well, you can take as long as you want, but till you finish your research, you can't graduate. So you have to plan it out. It's how you want to do it, so you can graduate in time. And so plan the whole process out. And so first step was survey development, our data collection. Basically, there's different forms to collect data. You have sensors, you have questionnaires, you can do reading. And we wanted something, um you know I want to say like practical, and something from directly from the field, not from some other research or some sensor. So we figured out the best way would be a one-on-one interaction and a confidential survey. So just a note that all the research we did are not associated to a single person. We have all the survey, but they have a unique number, and there's no way to link that number to a certain person, just for privacy reasons. And so the first step in survey development is, you have so many questions, like there's tons and tons of questions you can ask. So we had like over 100 questions that we wanted to ask. But I mean, if you have somebody answer 100 questions, they're going to be bored, they won't answer it accurately, or first of all, they probably wouldn't want to participate, right? And so we had a big list of questions, and we slowly started to look at, can some of these be skipped, can some of these be merged. And then we sent it out to a lot of like professionals in the industry, and also like academic scholars, and also like professional persons working in the safety field, like safety managers and safety executives working for contractors. So we sent it out, asked them what they thought were like important pressing questions, and then we did some more research as to, okay, what are some things that nobody has asked to date. And from that, we created about 50 questions that we wanted to ask. And then once we had the survey, what I did is, and well, here, shout out to Swinerton for allowing me to do it. I was an intern at that time at Swinerton, and they allowed me to do these interviews, have the workers sit in, and they're hourly people. They allowed them to be paid for their time to the survey. They paid me to do the survey, my time. So, and they basically gave me a platform to do the survey on 2 of their construction job sites. So once the paper survey was developed, we printed it out, and then every time we had a new worker trade partner come on site, they have to go through a safety orientation, which is like site specific.
That's
And
nice.
in that orientation, after that, we asked them, "Hey, do you want to participate in a survey?" And it was voluntary. Nobody was forced to participate in the survey. I explained to them what I was doing, explain how there, it's private. There's no, so there, none of the questions could identify a person. So there's nothing personal in it. And so once they were comfortable, usually like out of 6 people, 3 of them would say, "Yeah, I'm sure, why not?" And then to just as a appreciation of the time, we gave them like a gift card, a grocery store or some regular gift card, $10. Um, and so once I started getting feedback, the next step was you have a lot of data, and data is good, but not all data is good, right? You have to
Right.
pick and
Right.
choose what is relevant. So
Right.
I did over 100 plus surveys, and what we decided is to be fair and to get the most accurate feedback, we removed any survey that was incomplete. So even if they didn't answer one question, we took that out. So at the end, we had 86 responses which were complete and had all the information in it. Because there were some questions, that if they chose not to answer, it was fine. Yeah, and so a lot of the surveys we didn't consider in the study. And so we had like 86 good survey reports, good as in like complete. I mean, not the answers, but just complete. And then we use the software called Veka. It's a free, common, open source software, which is basically you can compare 2 things. So you can have 2 inputs of data and get a single output, or you can have more than two. So it's basically inputting all the data and getting outputs as you need. So say I'm going to say question 20 in relation with question 32, how does that relate? And then you can export that data and see the percentages of the numbers. We kept most of it in percentages, um, to get a proportion, but some of them are in like hours. So how do you like have a question that is in hours and the other question that is in like weight or some different unit? And so all that interpolation, the data thing was a step 2 of it. And so we did that. And then we had this results, and the next was that we have so many results now. Let's find the important ones, like which ones are critical. So like the one that stands out is, the person working the hardest has trouble sleeping. Some
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
thinks, right?
I believe it.
And yeah, so it's like, okay, that's interesting. And then the other one was, the younger people were driving longer hours, and talking to them, they weren't able to afford living in Seattle or in and around Seattle. I mean,
Right.
the housing prices are crazy, and so
Expensive.
so it was a interesting fact that people who have been living here for a long time probably bought a house, years ago when it was like more affordable, and so their commute time was less as compared to people who were young, just starting off, or were like 4 or 5 years into the industry. And so there's some interesting statistics, and a lot, like a majority of the uh, I want to say 80-ish percentage was traveling more than like 2 hours, or at least 2 hours a day. And it's a
Dang.
lot of traveling when you do that much hard work. So just to get some idea, what I did is I went, and the carpenters wear their bag and their tool set. I mean, that thing's heavy, and wearing that like 8 hours a day and working what they do, like you're doing decking, you're constantly bent over your knees, right? And you can't even sit down because you're like forming from the leaning edge and you're forming the next step, right? And so all that takes a toll on you, and and then you have to drive. And so things like that are, you know, the you have this data, and now what do you do? So quick thing, a company, what they can do is, okay, a person's traveling 3 hours do I have a project that's closer to his house? Let's just assign him over there, things like that. Or if he's traveling this far, what are the ways we can adjust his hours so he can beat traffic and reduce his travel time? So things like that. That's our like outcome later to develop these tools that can help like employers work on that. But yeah, there was a process, and then we submitted the paper to ASCE, so American Society of Civil Engineers, and I went last year before COVID hit. In March of last year, I went to Arizona State University 2020 and I did a presentation on this topic. And um, once we got feedback, they published a paper, I think November of last year. So yeah, that's been the journey.
Man, that's awesome. What that reminds me of, I'm starting to learn a little bit about it. I don't know, I'm sure y'all probably dabble with it a lot, but the concept of lean construction, just the way that you're talking about, maybe a work or an employer eliminating the long drive for some employees, is pretty much just making things more efficient for everyone involved. And by making things more efficient, the job site becomes more efficient, but also the health and lives of workers become more efficient too by doing one simple thing like that. So are you working for the general contractor while you're doing this research?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's crazy.
Swinerton, Swinerton is a general contractor. On two projects. Well, I was working on one project. The surveys from two projects. It was a ground up construction, 1 million square feet of development, two towers, 12 floors each, Class A office space,
Dang.
and 5 floors of underground parking.
Man,
So a big project.
you must manage your time very well, because working a full-time job and doing a research paper is crazy.
Yeah, well, when something you're working on is something you like and you're passionate about and you're interested in it, it doesn't feel like a burden, to be honest.
That's
You
good.
just do it and you're enjoying it, right? So I never felt on my plate or I was doing a lot. But yeah, it was fun process. I mean, just getting the feedback, then reading it, looking at this data. And these people because of that project lasted for 3 years. Every day you have a relationship with them, so it's just it was a lot, but it never felt like a lot.
Okay, so with you being on a job site, being an assistant project manager, and also doing this research paper at the same time, have you found that kind of, because I assume you're a lot more aware of mental health, of just how people are on a job site, or people's well-being, has that enabled you to be well, honestly, a better project manager, but also like a better friend to these workers on site, and kind of connect with them more because you've been doing all this research and learning more about what most of them or some of them are going through? How has that been in being able to connect with these guys?
Yeah, it has definitely helped a lot. Like I don't know, like I don't know each person's personal answer. But overall, I feel for the tradesmen. I mean, they work hard. They have their own challenges. We feel like like me being salaried, I feel like I have way more flexibility in terms of schedule. If I'm like I leave the office 2 hours early, I can cover that up working in the night or something like that. But they don't have that option. And some of the survey results, you can see that like going to the doctor, some of them said that I just don't have the time, probably don't get paid time off and things like that. So it makes you appreciate more of what they do. I really feel for the carpenters, iron workers, rod busters, all those people out there. I mean, it's hard life. I mean, first they are working in harsh weather conditions. They're working in a harsh environment itself. Like it's not like typing something on a computer. It's just putting things into place, and then they have the commute, and they have other issues. So everything compiled. This did, I appreciate them more than ever. I'm not saying I did not appreciate what they did, but right, I have a huge respect for our trades workers out in the field and what they do. And it's definitely been more like when I schedule things, I'm cognizant about overtime for, so Swinerton does a lot of self-perform. We self-perform drywall, demolition, rough carpentry and things like that. So, also concrete rebar, PT and things like that. So it's just makes you more aware. You plan things out, certain things. So, I look at like, okay, this worker A has already worked 60 hours. Maybe, next week I just give him 40 hours and have somebody else, if you need to do overtime, work overtime, things like that. So, yeah.
Wow, I love that. And let's park here. Let's talk about some of those, um, the ways that you researched this and you interviewed these tradesmen. One of the things you mentioned earlier was tradesmen having trouble sleep.
Mhm.
Um, I'm fascinated by this because that's like the old saying: the harder you work, the easier you're going to sleep. Like I'm just going to be exhausted when I get home, and yeah, there's been times where I've been exhausted. I did internship at Brassfield and Gorey this past summer. I was a concrete worker, and I loved it. Loved every minute of it. Got to learn a lot, but man, I saw just from one summer, man, my back's hurting, my forearm. I'm starting to have carpal tunnel. I'm 24 years old, and
Yeah.
I'm just now, almost a year removed, starting to go to an orthopedic because I just thought it'd go away. Like
Yeah.
that's the stigma of trying to be masculine. Oh, I'm all right. I'll be okay. I can work 80, 70. I mean, I didn't work that many hours. I can work 60 hours in a week and be okay. And I can push it out. And you start to see it creep in, later. But let's talk about just that first one about tradesmen not having great sleep and they work hard. Do you know anything about why the guys are staying up and not being able to sleep? Did they share those things with you?
Yeah. So, well, not exactly. Now, but like when they respond, I just collect it, and because I have to keep it confidential, I just mix it up and then we review it at a later date. So I never had an opportunity to ask a question. I mean, that was not the goal, because we didn't want to identify a single person. And even I, as a researcher, shouldn't be able to read or look at the answers and know that this person has certain issue, or he is this guy and whatever, right? So that never happened, that conversation. But something I did just for my own understanding is I put myself through, I don't want to say exactly their conditions, but something I tried to recreate over a weekend. I just tried to exhaust myself, do hard work, lifting, moving, hammering, and that kind of work. And then first day is fine, but the second day, you're so tired that when you lay down, you're just, you just lay down, your resting position, but not actually. I don't know why. Is it the brain too active, or the body's too tired, or it is hard to sleep? And I think it is not a new thing. It's just probably something that we did not realize, because yeah, if I go on a hike this weekend and come back, I'll have a good night's sleep, right? Because it's just one day I went and came back. But I think it's the repetition of that hard work
Right.
day in day out is
Right.
what's it causing. And I think it's the accumulation of lack of sleep, because you look at their schedule, like a person's traveling like 2-3 hours every day. It's coming to the job site, working at least 8 hours plus some breaks and things like that. Goes home, what cooks dinner, eats dinner, and by the time he sleeps, he has to wake up again just to beat traffic and come to the job site. So I think Monday, Tuesday is fine, but by the time it's Friday,
Right.
it's totally,
Yep.
they're
Right.
completely exhausted, and maybe that's the reason. And when I did this survey, it was pre-COVID, 2018, 2017. Like Seattle construction market was crazy, and one of the reasons why we did it that duration is to get good data and what is happening when the industry is like booming. And so a lot of these workers were working overtime, like 40 hours just wasn't a thing. They all were working 50, 60, and some even more, just to meet the project schedule. Everyone had the pressure, like, the pressure starts from the owner, but then trickles down to the GC, to the sub, the PM, and
Right.
eventually it's the field guys that are, taking the brunt of it. So
That's right.
yeah. So yeah,
No,
go ahead.
I completely believe the sleep portion of that for sure. And I don't have any any arena to talk about this because I'm not in the trades and I don't work nearly as hard as they do every single day. But just from projects of, at Auburn, we have a project where you have to go out in the field and you actually work and build something. And from doing that last semester, I mean, we'd go out there all day, put up siding, and you're climbing up and down scaffoldings, you're cutting, everything's loud, banging, putting things up, like all kinds of stuff. And you do that 1 or 2 days in a row. Like I would come home, I would feel anxious. I wouldn't even know why. I was like, I just worked, very hard all day long. I want to be able to just sit down and go to sleep, but that was not the case at all. And so it's funny that you bring this up because I thought I was like, one of the only ones. I was like, man, I guess I didn't work hard enough. That was one of my thought processes. I guess I'm not tired enough. But the fact that this is a common occurrence among so many other people is crazy to me, and I completely believe it, because just having a fraction of how hard they work, men and women in the trades, is, I experienced just a little bit of that. That's wild.
Yeah, and we just look at it as like, oh, he just worked 8 hours, but driving is no fun. I mean,
Right.
that although you're
all your focus and attention's on
on it, you're if you hit traffic, it's even worse. So just that's the whole purpose of this study, is not to just look at what they do on the job site, but look at other factors, right? If you have a 6 o'clock call time in the morning, 6 a.m., they are there like 5:30, they're prepping, they're putting on the gear, we are doing stretch and flex. And then, if they end at like 3, they're not just going home, 3, they go remove, change, and drive back. So it's not just like an 8 hour, it's longer. It's a longer day and there's more work, and some people have family, some people eat out, but still it's just still activity. You're not just going home, eating and sleeping, right? And so it all at the end contributes to this.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people now who are not in construction, they don't ever think about that, because especially in the Zoom day and age that we're in right now, everyone can wake up at 7:55 to go to an 8 o'clock meeting, but construction never stopped. I mean, everyone, like, it never stopped. It kept on going. And so people are still waking up at 4 a.m. to get there, like you said, at 5:30, and they're still leaving to travel. It might have been a little bit shorter because there's no one on the roads, but it's still an extra, like you said, 2-3 hours of getting ready, traveling, getting prepared to working, and then you actually got the work itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. So, right, one thing we have in our Seattle office is we have like summer Fridays, where if you get your work done, you can leave by 1 p.m. on every Friday, for like three-ish months. Like when I was on the project, we never had that option, because that you never get to leave early, because construction out in the field, you keep doing it. People in the office can do that because they have flexible working. So things like that is just, you cannot just work from home. Like that's just not an option, right? And so even in COVID, field guys still had like, I personally feel the stress has increased, because now you're having to do a lot of the work alone, where you could have an extra hand because of the social distancing. You're wearing a mask. You have more things to think about, and all sanitizations, can't sit there, do this, that. So I think the COVID has maybe have reduced the travel time, but I think it's just made the work more stressful.
Right.
Can we take a pause? Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I just feel like something's stuck. So
You're good.
Okay, sorry about that.
You're good, buddy.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Nihar, I think that's a good point. During COVID, you're right. Yeah, you cut down on travel time, but you've made it more stressful. We've made it to a point where there's so many rules for these guys that constantly just thinking that at least the tradesmen are working like, oh, can I do this? Do I have to wear a mask on? Oh, these glasses are fogging up. What do I got to do here? Can I be over here near this person? Oh, wait, it's changed. Now I can't, and they're just constantly, berated by, the guidelines changing. But kind of talking more about the tradesmen, Walker, I second the notion of I have no I don't know what no word in saying I have any clue of what a tradesman goes through. You know, I did one summer, I did a few months, but the guys that go through it every day, I'm still fascinated by the portion of the guys that work the hardest. A lot of guys usually take that home to their families. And my aunt Nihar used to be a counselor. She's now in leadership, and she talked to me about this because I had problems with this personally. Was like, you know, I got worked up from the day. You're around a bunch of tough guys and that masculine ego, and then you come home and you have to learn how to turn that switch off, and it's really hard. You have to learn how to just go, I'm going to leave that at work. That stuff's not coming home with me. And I think that's one of the things in society that's so hard, especially with my OCD personality. And I talked with Walker about this is, as humans, we put so much pressure on ourselves. We expect, like, okay, we learned a new skill. The next day, we have to have it right. We have to have it perfect. And it's just not, there's nowhere near, like, that's not, we're humans. We're sinful people. We're not perfect. We're not going to get things right all the time. And I know I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but I feel like there needs to be more grace towards tradesmen. Like you said, as something as simple as giving a guy that drove 2 hours today, let him come in 30, 45 hour minute later. There's guys that I've seen on job site that I know personally that were the subcontractors. They drove 2 hours and a superintendent would get mad at him that he's there at 6:01. You're like, dude, you have no clue. You live 15 minutes from the job site. But, trying to wrap all this up, I want to go back to, well, what's the end result of what's the outcome of this research? I know you were talking about there's going to be a part 2, but just share about maybe what was it like going to Arizona State and having that presentation. But where are we going with this, Nihar? What's the next step for you?
Yeah. So, well, so we looked at a lot of things in this survey. I think the next step is to deep dive in some of the few serious issues or like the concerning results and get more data on those particular issues. Have more questions focused towards the same topic than generic questions and get more feedback. So the pool size is pretty less right now. We want to increase it to like different project types. So both the surveys were on ground up projects. So it's a different crew, right? They do one ground up like concrete finishers and rod busters and those guys. You won't find that trade on a TI project. Like, I mean, it might be, but not to that extent, right? Then you have all these finishing subs at that point. So our goal is to then also look at different project types and see if there's actually certain things that only exist on a ground up project and things that come along with that, or if there's certain things that only happen on a tenant improvement or renovation or that kind of project. So that's the next step. And also looking at developing some assessment, easy way, because not all of the people out there or the employers are going to have time to do a survey, get feedback, do the research, right? So some sort of like a scale or tool that we are developing right now to help people determine or judge or figure things out, like how I can help them.
So ultimately, what do you want to see this study accomplish, in the construction industry? Like, what do you want to see kind of start to change a little bit with more awareness coming out about mental health and depression and anxiety and all that associated with it?
Yeah. So, well, I'll give you an example of a trade. So concrete finishes, right? I feel like that's one of the hardest trades to be in. They start their job early. So on a day of the concrete pour, typically the carpenters and those guys come at 3 a.m. in the morning. We start setting up the pump. We have to set up the boom pump, concrete trucks backing up, and like the finish touch to the deck. And then once we start pouring concrete at say like 5, the finishers are there on site, and they're the last persons to leave because they have to stay till the concrete is set where to a point where they can finish it. So at times they were there till like 10 p.m. and they're going to do the same thing the next morning. It's hard. So the goal of this research is just not one objective. It was things like this that can you work it out? Can you do it in 2 shifts? Can you have, like, they do it. I mean, I'm not saying the same guy stays along, but they don't have the luxury. Like, there were days when it started raining, when it wasn't supposed to rain. So now the finisher that's supposed to leave at 6 now has to stay till 8 or 9, after the water is gone, or finish it up. So there's so much, in construction, every day is a new day, and a problem every time. It's a new problem. It doesn't matter how many times you've done it, it's always something new, right? So then how do you plan it? How do you have, like, a backup? Maybe you have a extra crew, or plan that out, right? The other objective is to educate people in the administration side of things, where the folks who are like planning, it can be superintendent, project manager, or just even the scheduler, to be more conscious, make conscious decisions, have a schedule in a way that is not burning the guys out, right? The other objective is just to raise general awareness within the construction industry and outside of the industry as well, because, like, we construction industry has the second highest suicide rates amongst all the other industries. The only one that's ahead is like mining, gas extraction, and again, like, very similar to construction, like hard life, right? So that's not something good. A lot, we all know the issue of lack of young talent joining tradesmen. Nobody wants to do it. It's hard life, and at some point, it's already an issue. At some point, it's going to be an even bigger issue, right? And so how do we make sure that even they are treated in a very similar fashion as to how you would treat a person working in the office? Like, you make sure they have a good chair, you have ergonomic, you have these, ergonomic mouse, keyboard, you give them like sit stand desks and things like that to, make sure they are healthy. Why not have something, if not the same, but something similar for the field guys? Because they are important, they are humans, they deserve respect. Just because their work is dirty, in the sense, like, you're just dealing with rust and dirt and things like that, doesn't make them any lesser than you, or doesn't make their work less important, right?
That's right.
So it's like awareness outside of construction to eventually get to a point where people are willing to join our industry, right? Not just by because they don't have an option, but by choice. And then awareness amongst the construction workers through this survey, spread awareness, have talks. So we have like toolbox talks, and in our stretch and flex in the morning, we talk about like some of the results. Hey guys, I'm seeing this, and guys and gals, like, some people are traveling, I'm going to do a split shift and things like that, right? That, and then admin side. So, and in general, just awareness about mental health, because you can't see it, but it exists.
That's right. Nihar, and whatever we can do to help, man, we are definitely going to jump in and help you. You talk to the concept of laying foundations is, we're trying to target this younger generation of people. We want to get the word out to the general public about, what is construction really about? There's so many different paths. There's so many different ways you can go, but our target audience is to get that younger generation inspired to want to come into our industry. Because like you said, we're at a point now with getting tradesmen, even guys in the office, the guys that estimating, project managers. We need tradesmen. I mean, we need a bus load of people and more.
Yeah.
And there's reasons why. There's reasons why people aren't coming to our industry. Like you said, there's reasons why these old guys are literally about to walk out the door and retire. And if we don't do something about it, then we're going to blink one day and they're going to be gone, and it's going to be up to the few guys that are left. And so our industry, we've spoken a lot about there's a lot of problems. I think that this podcast has been beneficial of getting to get this first step out. I would love to have you back on. But I would say that, this industry, we talk about the guys and what they go through. Some of these guys that we talk about, that what they're going through, they are still some of the best people you've ever met. They're still some of the most down to earth, have great hearts, probably because they've been through so much, but they're just guys that care for one another. And I mean, me being out there in the field every summer now to where I'm a full-time position, where I'm at a company I feel like values their employees and their subs and their trade partners so well. I've seen firsthand what it's like to really care for that person. I don't know much about you, but I care for you. I know you have a family. I'm going to make sure that I'm looking out for you safety wise, see if you're tired. I'm going to be the one to see it. If there's something you're not doing right, I'm going to, hey, let's talk about this. And I think that's so important. I know we can branch off and talk about safety in a whole nother different way, but man, I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited about what you're doing. Whatever I can do to help you, we will try our best. But man, this has been an awesome time to get to know about what you do. And before Walker asks our last question, how can people get access of this article? Are they able to read it? Is there a way that they can see your research paper? Is it still coming out in the process? Just let me know about that.
Yeah, so the thing is, the paper was published in the ASCE journal. So the only way to access it is going online and downloading it. The paper you can buy the whole journal, or you can buy a single paper. I can send you the link, but unfortunately it's not freely available. It cannot be openly published because AC owns the copyright to it, and they took the effort of publishing it. And there's just it's a paper for academic use, and people can cite it, so they have to maintain that quality and make it only available, so that it just this plagiarism and this just other things associated with it. So we can share the link where people can go and look at it, and if they like it, they can download it. And if somebody has questions, I can share my LinkedIn profile link with you, and they can reach out to me. And I'm open to talk.
Put it in the show notes.
Yeah, and I've already spoken to a lot of people since the time the paper has been published. And I'm open to collaboration. I'm open to talking to them, educating people. I have no issues with that. And and just wanted to say likewise, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the kind words and the appreciation. It was good talking. So
Well, Nihar, we are, like I said, like Davis just said, incredibly excited that you came on the show with us. We have one final question we'd like to ask this to every single guest. So going forward, you've been through a lot, man. You've been from India to the U.S. to writing a research paper, being an APM. I mean, dude, you have done it all. It seems like you're a superhero.
Speak 4 languages.
Yeah, speak 4 languages. I'm serious, superhero over here. And so from your time of just growing, honestly, as a person, what's a piece of advice, knowledge, wisdom that you would go back and give your 20-year-old self if you could go back in time and tell yourself something?
Yeah, so I would say, and this is because just because of my personal experience, I would say you can plan however much you want to plan, but there's some things that are out of your control. So you can only control certain things. So be open to change. So I say this because back when I was in my final year of the diploma, I had to do a 6-month internship. And I was very adamant where I wanted to go. It was to work for a GC, because that was always my goal, work with a general contractor. But I got an offer from a owner developer GC. So they buy the land, they build the building themselves. They just hire all the subs. And I was very hesitant. And then my dean at that time called me and said, take this. I know you like what you did there and they really want you back, but give it a shot, see how it is. It's a whole different side of the industry. And I'm glad now that I took the chance. And although I really wanted to do one thing, I had everything planned out, full time and this, and 5 years down the road. But then I took the chance, and I'm happy I did, because I worked on some really interesting projects from a developer GC side, building high-rise condo spaces, talking to tenants and clients, and it's just a whole different ball game. And hiring all the subs. So I just want to say, take things as they come. Make good decisions, but be open to not being forced to follow something else and not what you had in mind.
I love that.
Really good.
Yeah, and then one more thing I would say is start saving money and invest early, because the power of compounding is, don't underestimate compounding. I wish I had known that early on.
That's awesome. I love that. Walker's got Walker's gonna geek out in the finance advice there, but
Yeah,
I mean, I love both of those points. Nahar, the first point, I was like this meticulous planner, and then COVID hit, and it just made me okay. It's gonna go with the flow. I can't control it. Don't know what's gonna happen, and I mean, I still plan to an extent, but instead of getting so worked up in my own life about why is this not hit, why is this not right, why is this what, and you just learn to let it go. So I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible advice. It's the first time we got that advice on this show, so that's really cool. But Nihar, thank you so much again, man. Seriously, it's been an honor. Very grateful that you were able to come on here with us and share a little bit about you and your research and just what you have put, your heart and time and soul into recently. So thank you again. Looking forward to part 2 down the road and just to see where things have gone from there.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. And it was really nice talking to you. And the goal is to spread awareness. So I think this is a good platform. I really like what you guys are doing with the podcast. So yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.